wanted to get your take on GSP versus Bisping. You know, having trained with GSP, having fought Bisping not only in MMA but in grappling as well, who are you picking for that fight?
I love that fight. I am picking George in that fight, but I really like it. I've competed with Bisping twice myself, once in MMA, once in grappling. Tough son of a bitch. I've only trained with George. So maybe I come to you with a little bit different perspective. But here's a lot that's being made of that fight is Bisping's size. And anytime you talk about size, what you're really talking about is the guy is stronger, right? We don't really care who weighs more. We care about who's stronger than who. This is a weird one because Bisping is meaningfully bigger. He will cut to make 185. He will get in the ring about 200 pounds. George St. Pierre will weigh in about 183 pounds. He will get in the ring at 183 pounds. However, this might surprise you. However, George is meaningfully stronger than Bisping. George is one of the strongest guys I've ever grabbed a hold of. He's got, I mean, almost unexplainable strength, and particularly for his size. So that whole who's bigger thing kind of goes out the window when you have the longer narrative that the smaller guy, surprisingly, is going to be stronger.
Wow, that's very interesting to hear that.
That's very interesting. That is it, and I appreciate you saying that because so many times when we all understand size, you know, they get on the scale, okay, well, this guy's bigger, but well, let's break down what that means. What we're saying is this guy can control the other guy because he's bigger, he's stronger. This is a case where the bigger guy is weaker. And Bisping's not a weak man. Bisping's a stud. But, you know, George likes the matchup. George wasn't planning to come back, and he sure wasn't planning to come back at middleweight. Insert Michael Bisping as the champion. All of a sudden, George goes, wait a minute, I'm the best wrestler in the history of MMA, taking on a guy from a country that doesn't even have a wrestling program. I like this matchup. I don't think that he likes himself versus Romero or himself versus Jacare. I think he likes this specific matchup. Now, guys have liked matchups before and been wrong, and they get carried out of the ring and they're embarrassed and face down. Happens all the time. Could happen to George. But if you're asking me, with my experience and both of them, I like George.
Wow, very interesting to hear that he is stronger. Man, makes me think of a whole different fight of how this could play out. But you know, Joe Rogan has said this past week that he's hearing the fight isn't selling well. Are you surprised by that? You know, given the star power of GSP, or has he been away for so long that the new age casual fans just aren't on board?
Yeah, and it was just a weird enough fight. You know, I like a little bit of weirdness, but it was just weird enough. I'll just use myself to answer this one. I first heard that fight, I kind of went, really? Like, there's so many guys I'd be pretty excited to see Bisping fight. So many guys I'd really like to see George in there with, but there was something about that parity that it didn't grab me right at first. Now, after the first press conference, after the second, after the third, yeah, man, I'm on board. They're getting my money. But, yeah, there is something with that match that's just weird enough that didn't grab some people. Now, I think that it will be sold out in Madison Square Garden. I think it's got a hell of a supporting cast with Joanna Champion and finally the grudge match between, TJ and Garbrandt. I think it's going to be a very special night. I think pay-per-view numbers are going to reflect that. But I get it. You know, it was a little bit slower build for me too. It didn't happen right away. And most of the really big fights, the second I hear about them, I go, oh my God, when is that? I can't wait. And this one was a little slower.
Now, do you think that was a move by the UFC to purposely have, as you said, that supporting cast for the card? Do you think that was a move by the UFC knowing that maybe this was a tough sell?
Yeah, maybe a little bit. And then what are you dealing with George? You know, the guy's been a little crazy and a little sporadic. He's committed to some other fights and dipped his toe in the water and kind of danced around this. And at some point we're thinking, okay, you're working us all and trying to keep your name out there to hang on to some of your sponsorships. You know, I'm just not sure they knew what was going to happen. So whenever you have that kind of turmoil and you're booking something as expensive and big as MSG, you know, you got to have plans B and C in place. So I think you know, the politics behind it was a little combination of everything that I just mentioned. You know, but here we are, you know, what are we, 10 days away? I mean, the fight's going to happen. It's going to go down. You know, I'm headed to New York tonight to start covering it for ESPN. So, yeah, it's a big deal. It's a really big deal. And as far as selling goes, I don't know what those ticket prices are. You know, you and I were just referencing Conor versus Mayweather, and it didn't sell out. But the cheapest ticket, the nosebleed, the absolute easiest you could get in the arena was $1,500. So, you know, it's a little bit tougher. I don't know that they're doing that or what the prices are for MSG, but that could affect things too. You know, sometimes you won't sell out, but you do a killer pay-per-view. George is going to do great business. He brings an entire country with him, and Bisping's the same way. Yeah. You know, Bisping is such a high-paid fighter, and so many people have resisted it. But Lorenzo Fertitta himself spoke on it and said, yeah, I get more resistance on Bisping's pay than anybody, but you have to understand he brings an entire nation with him. So, yeah, when they finally lock up as far as viewership goes, it's going to be huge. Are they going to have a sold-out arena? I think so.